Madoka, it's a land of joy and wonder and contracts with possible demonic cats. Hey, it's Romania Black. We're on episode 3 of Puella Magi Madoka Magica. And Kyubey is quite frightful. And we haven't even seen what Kyubey can do yet. But this little cat thing, as they've been called in the comments, has proposed that they can just grant any wish that you want. Any wish, any miracle you want. All you gotta do is basically trade your soul to hunt witches for the rest of your days. Seems too good to be true. I don't know. We had a lot of theorizing in the last episode, and then when I went on a trip after that for a week, and so I came back and spent today rewatching episode 2. Getting back into things. It's been a while. These names, I kind of feel like I did with Psycho-Pass when I started. And when I started Psycho-Pass, I didn't immediately pick up on the names of the characters. And it took me a couple episodes. This is kind of doing the same thing for me, especially because everybody talks so fast in this show. And you have to literally be like, what are you saying? And go back through it. So I've got some comments now that episode 1 is on Patreon. I want to talk about those before we dive in. Kaku mentioned, and several others have mentioned, that Shaft Studio is the studio doing this series. They also do March Comes In Like a Lion, which is another series that I'm watching on this channel. So I get like a back-to-back Shaft session on Thursdays and Sundays, which is really exciting. I can definitely see them being from the same studio. The art decisions are very eclectic and very kind of bizarre in a good way. So I really like that. Kaku also says that the voice actors, Madoka's voice actress is Cruel from Seraph of the End. If you've watched Seraph of the End, you know who that is. And they also are Suyu from My Hero Academia, which is super cute. One that really surprised me was Homura. Homura's voice actress, Homura is so like stoic in this series, and her voice actress is Yona from Yona of the Dawn, like one of my favorite female protagonists. Love Yona, so I'm really excited about that. And also plays Ida in Croco's Basketball, which is so crazy because like Ida is a super like high energy character. Yona can be a high energy character, and Homura is just very, very stoic. So a very different take for a character for this voice actress to play. So I'm really excited about that. And then Sayaka's voice actress is Ashido from My Hero Academia as well. Mami's voice actress, Kaku said that she's a pretty prolific voice actress, but she's not played anyone in a series that I've seen that is notable. So good to know. And then the cat thing, Kyubey, is voiced by the same voice actress as Becky from Spy Family. So can't trust that Becky. So I'm joking, but yeah, Kyubey frightens me to no extent because Kyubey is like that mentor character in a series. I'm thinking of Urahara in Bleach. I'm thinking of Kakashi in Naruto. They're like that mentor character that you're like, oh, they're probably a secret badass. And Kyubey seems to be that way, but I'm like, is he a secret badass for good or is he a secret badass for evil? And I'm like, Kaku also made a really cool note that I hadn't thought about this series, but it has kind of changed my perspective a little bit. They described it as like a coming of age story. And I was like, yeah, so them saying that immediately makes me think of like Fooly Cooly. Because Fooly Cooly, it's been like 20 years since I've seen Fooly Cooly, but I remember Fooly Cooly, and it very much was like a coming of age story for this boy and all the bizarre craziness that happens that kind of encapsulates growing up and encapsulates who we are as a person growing up. And it's as weird as puberty is. So now I'm thinking, do I also need to look at this series from the lens of being a coming of age story? Where is she like looking at Madoka and the idea of the soul eggs, the soul gems, the witch eggs? Like, is it dealing with like puberty and growing up? And are we going to tie sexuality into this? Like, how's that going to work? We don't have the tuxedo mask figure yet to come in and like give the girls a pep talk like they do in Sailor Moon. So that's very interesting to me. I'm like, what do we do with that? So we'll just have to wait and see, I guess. But I don't know. I'm really excited to see where that goes. But we'll have to cross that bridge when we get to it. But yeah, very, very excited about it. Super excited to see what happens. We also have Alex Cornejo. Alex Cornejo, you won't get this if you've not watched Neon Genesis Evangelion, but I love Neon Genesis Evangelion. And so they were talking about how Madoka's parents are basically if Masato and Kaji got married. And I was like, oh my God. Because it's like the dad has a garden and cooks. The mom is kind of a girl boss. And I'm like, wow, that translates very well. And this show kind of has a Neon Genesis vibe. So it fits. And then they went on kind of a tangent about the architecture, which one of my friends from college that I was a roommate with, they are an art history major. And so they kind of are really big into architecture. And so they actually work for like an architectural history firm, which is cool. But so I can connect to this, and was enthralled by Alex's information. But Madoka's house is a mix of Ern's case study house and Eisenman's house with the cubic design, the planes and surfaces, the volume cutting, etc. I was like just sitting there being like, this is so fascinating. And then the classrooms are like Maze von der Rohe, with the glass cage design. And the mall that we see in episodes 1 and 2 is from a Renzo Piano building. And the store's signage in the show is even present in the series Peak and Schoppenberg. So really cool. I feel like I just said something in another language, but it sounded really interesting and I thought it was fascinating. So thank you all for those awesome comments. Yeah, my voice started to go away a couple days ago. I was having a raspy voice and I was like, no, but I feel like it's coming back. It's much better than it was a couple days ago. I think I just got some pollen and seasonal things going on. I feel like I lost my voice around the same time last year. Seems like that was the thing. But it is coming back. So if I sound a little raspy, it's because of that. But yeah, y'all, I'm so excited for this series to look at it through the lens of like a weird coming of age story. It's like magical girl Alice in Wonderland mixed with creepiness, like a Grimm's fairy tale angle. I'm super intrigued. And Kyubei's made this contract. Now, technically, Sayaka and Madoka haven't agreed to it yet. They haven't made their wish. And I'm like, girls, don't blow this. Don't make some stupid wish up like I think you're going to do. But who knows? So we're not going to waste any more time. We're going to dive in and see what this crazy, creepy cat gets up to. And we're going to do that here. Episode 3 of Madoka Magica in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. I wasn't ready. I'm still processing. I'm still. I don't know where to start, y'all. We're a fourth of the way through the series, and this episode did not in any way, shape, or form go the way that I thought it would. I kept thinking in my head as we were going through the reaction, I was like, okay, when we get to this point, I'm going to talk about it in the discussion. And then it didn't happen. And I was like, okay, well, when we get to this point, I'm going to talk about it in the discussion. And then it didn't happen. And I was like, when we get to this point, we're going to talk about it in the discussion. And then it didn't happen. And then the next minute, the little Sanrio mouse becomes a Bakshi creation and chomps the head off of Mami and then mutilates her, and we don't even get to see it. It's just gone, and it's like everything's just off the rails, and then it's over. Well, we're going to talk about this episode, but it went a lot of different directions than I anticipated. I thought about bringing Whiteboard Kun out, but there really was only one thing I was going to talk about with it, but instead I think I'll just work through it with y'all. This episode is going to be a lot of fun to discuss because we're going to talk about where Romania thought the episode was going and then where it ends up going. So that's going to be, man, Mami's dead. And Kyubei, with its unblinking, soulless face, was just like, well, become magical girls, kids, because now we're down one. And thank God Homura was like, nah, bitch, nah, don't you be doing this. We're going to talk about this, of Homura and why she does not want Madoka to become a magical girl, right? Sayaka's not a problem. We're not worried about her. But Madoka, we're worried about her. So I'm very curious I've got theories, of course, and we're going to go through this. But man, so the episode starts out with the boy. The boy seemed to have a female voice actress, so for me it was a little confusing at first to determine whether it was a boy or a girl. And I know that there's going to be that person in the comments that's like, well, they didn't have boobs. Look at this. There ain't a lot going on here either. So I never judge gender based on if they have noticeable breasts or not, because you can be a woman and have a very small bosom. So I don't judge. I don't ever judge based on that. And because they had a female voice actress, I was like, but then I thought, okay, well, like Shinji in Neon Genesis, which this series reminds me so much of, Shinji has a female voice actress too. So fine. But okay, so yeah, we have the flowers. And if you look, there's all the different CDs that have been given. How many CDs are there? I'm going to go through here and count. There's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. There's 26 CDs there in the stack. And Sayaka brings another one. So I would say that she hasn't brought a CD every day. That'd be excessive. She might have. Would she have brought a CD every week? Every month would suggest they've been there half a year, which could be the case. Either she's been bringing this guy a CD every month or every week. Either way, that's a lot of money spent on CDs for rare finds, although she could have gone to like an antique store or like a little like vintage store and found it in like the dollar bin. But regardless, it is suggested that Sayaka likes this boy. She has a crush because she has there's the damn chair is in the middle of the hospital room. There's a chair at the doorway. What this series does that's so creepy is just, it puts things randomly there. Just randomly there. And you don't notice it at first. And then when you go back and rewatch, you're like, why is it there? Why is there a chair in the middle of the room and not by the bed? That's a creepy place to put that chair. There's no reason for that chair to be there, but it's there and it's creepy. The use of chairs, again, the Neon Genesis-ness of this series is amazing and I love it. But I'm just like, what the fudge? So Sayaka having the crush on the boy, right? Of the boy that she got a crush. She's outside the hospital door, like breathing deeply before she goes in to see him. And then she comes in to see, and they're like, oh, hey, what's up? And gives him the CD. And the CD is Dodd Ostrak. So it's like a composer and a violinist. And so they say, oh, you're a genius when it comes to finding rare CDs. Also, this room, now that I'm looking at it, this hospital room is such a bizarre hospital room. There's like a mantle place. There's like a tapestry rug on the floor that's all the colors of the wind. There's like a Belle Beauty and the Beast style bookshelf behind them. There is no hospital that looks like this. And I'm so fascinated by it. My thing is, before we even talk about the boy's reaction to the CD, I did, like I said in the reaction, get vibes of, there's an episode of Sailor Moon where Sailor Mercury, who has blue hair, is nothing like Sayaka. Sailor Mercury is like the brains of the group and Sayaka is not. None of these girls are the brains of the group, which is very, typical of teenage girls. It's fine. We're not following stereotypes in that convention. But there is an episode where she has a friend that needs help. And I remember watching it, and it's like when Sailor Mercury first transforms. I think it's like a study group or something like that, but she goes in the study group and she ends up saving the friend by becoming Sailor Mercury. What I thought was going to happen was that Sayaka was going to become a magical girl and make a wish. I thought that the witch was going to have the boy where it was going to eat him. And Sayaka was going to make the choice to become a magical girl to save him. And I thought that's what was going to happen. I thought the climax of this episode was going to be that the boy here that she has a crush on was going to be put into danger, and she was going to have to become a magical girl to save him. And then Madoka would be the only one left out without making the wish yet, and then we'd pick up at episode 4 with that. No, that's not what happened at all. And I was like, oh, the boy isn't even a thing in this episode. He's talked about, and we'll get to that, but not even present during the witch hatching. So good news there, I guess. But yeah, they listen together, and of course the boy's like, here, and the fact that the boy takes out the earbuds and the player, that's a tie to Neon Genesis as well. I'm not going to say how because that would be a spoiler, but it is crazy talk. and then manages to put it in and gives it to her. He's like, I want you to hear it from the speakers, but we're at a hospital in the most lavish of bougie hospitals ever. By the way, this does not look like a hospital at all, but I kind of love it. And she's like right next to him and they're listening closely, which is like, you know, one of the stereotypical things you do with your crush, right? So that part's really fun. And then when he plays the track, which also, I love the futuristic, like the players, it's like a vinyl. They have a vinyl sitting in their lap and it plays it like a vinyl player, but it like comes apart. So it's like a mixture of vinyls and like a Zune from 2004. It's the coolest, weirdest, like futuristic tech. That's mixing like old school 90s with early 2000s. I'm kind of all about it. But yeah, but as they listen to it, they think back to when he was playing and she went to one of his concerts. Look, I mentioned Neon Genesis because there is in the lineup of Neon Genesis media that is available, there is a recap movie. And in the recap movie, one of the bonus scenes is that they're playing in a concert and one of the characters plays a violin. And it's like, ah. So that instantly made me think, and it's on a stage exactly like that. So I was like, oh, interesting. It also has some Given vibes. Get some Akihiko Ugetsu up in here. But she recalls going to his concert and hearing him play. And then she like flashes back to look over to him and he's crying and twisting his arm like he's trying to play the music, but it won't do that because he's stuck there in the bed. And his arm is bandaged up. I felt like because they'd taken a lot of blood, like they'd drawn blood and stuff from him, but it may be that he's had surgery on his hand and like maybe his tendons he's had surgery on. And so the question is he going to be able to play the violin again? I don't know. So is he going to be able to play the violin? Now we're going to talk about that when we get to the wish, right? When we get to the wish, we're going to talk about this whole scenario with the violin and everything, because it looks like he's trying to play it, but he can't the same way. So it's not going to work. And she kind of is down about it. This scene is beautiful. Like this whole episode, gorgeously animated. It's absolutely beautiful. And we cut to Madoka, who looks sad in this opening. Now I can see why she looks sad. This opening is deceptive. Because at the very end, it shows the three of them on top of that little tower. Madoka and Sataya and Sayaka and Mami all together. And they're all up on the tower like eating their sandwiches like, ha, ha, ha. She's all alone here. Is Sayaka going to die? Is Madoka going to be the last one with Homura? The fudge? I give this show props. Because based on the OP, I thought Mami was making it out till the end. If you told me she was going to die 3 episodes into the series, I would not have believed you. I'd have been like, what? No, that show ain't going to do that bold of a move. They did. They did, bitches. It's kind of insane. And so, yeah, we have Madoka. We have this long-haired, pink-haired person that we still don't know about. Looks all fine. Let's push our boobs together. Everything's great. Don't understand what's going on, but we'll find out. And then, okay, so there was a shot of the girls together. It looked like Madoka, Hitomi, and then there's another girl with glasses. We don't know who she is. There's the boy that's friends with Sataya. There's, Kyubey and Mami on the couch next to each other. Then there's this girl with red hair. Don't know who she is. She's like, looks like she has a balloon in her mouth. Is it a condom? I don't know. It's a coming of age story. She looks like she could be a Fooly Cooly character. We'll see. But then, and then Madoka as the magical girl. Uh-huh. Yep. We'll just see where this goes. But there's a black cat too. What the fudge? And then, and then there's Homura on the one end of the fence, and then Madoka's on the other side. So, and the episode's called I'm Not Scared of Anything Anymore. So, I don't know. I don't want Homura and Madoka to become antagonists against one another, because I don't think that that's the case, but we'll talk about it in this episode. So and then they're all just having a great time up there on top of the tower. No big deal. Son of a bitch. Okay. So we start out the episode after the OP with Mami using her little mystic. She has that little mystic ribbon it's the soul gem that becomes the ribbon that she uses to tie up Homura. It also becomes a massive gun. And she just blasts away these duds, as they call. I think it's a really cool callback. It's a nice little kind of foreshadowing hint at the beginning here, because they make note that all they've been doing lately is fight duds, and they've been defeating them rather easily. So we set up at the start of this episode that we're luring our audience into this false sense of security, right? They're like, oh, everything's been so easy right up until now. Oh, this witch is going to be good. Even when Homura is like, no, this witch is kind of bad news. We'll talk about it later on, but the episode sets us up with this sense of false security that we don't think that the villains are going to be that hard to take down. And then also the witch looks very cutesy. So you're like, oh, it's not that bad. It's just a cute little witch. Nope. And then we're instantly proven wrong. So yeah, we have this little seizure inducing moment, and then the gun blasts and she manages to take care of the dud. And the thing about it is on the one hand, we find out kind of why Mami does it later. But at the beginning, I'm like, I don't feel so bad for Mami at the start, because she's literally gaslighting these girls into becoming magical girls. But then we find out why before she dies. And it's like, okay. But yeah, Sayaka and Madoka are like, oh, good job, Mami. We've been following you around with this rubber bat. Everything's cool. You're awesome. And she's like, it's not a magic show. I like that we have her on top of the one lamp post that's lit up, and there's literally like 5 or 6 behind her. And again, empty benches all lined up in a row. The monkey gyms, like none of this stuff makes sense structure-wise. And I think it's literally there to look cool and be aesthetically confusing. And it's succeeding at its goals, right? But yeah, she's like, what we're doing is dangerous. And then they're like, oh, it didn't drop a grief seed. And that's like, oh, it's just a familiar that split off from a witch. And so it wasn't a witch. There's a lot of moments in this episode involving light and shadows. There are a lot of shadows in this episode. Shadows that intersect, shadows that are similar, shadows that are different. Like at the start of this, you have the shadows of all 3 of them, and they're all facing the same way because they're all on the same page, right? And so they're like, oh, well, this wasn't a witch. We've just been fighting duds, but we can't ignore the familiars. If they're allowed to develop, they will become the same type of witch they broke off from. Well, and then she just drops that nugget of information and then just, it's fine, never mind. So the thing about it is, Kyubey knows all this shit. This little cat thing knows everything. It knows all of this. It had to have, because it told Mami this. So there are several moments throughout the series that I'm like, they kind of depend on Mami for exposition. Well, now that she's dead, is this little cat demon gonna tell them anything? Probably not. Or, Mami, even though she clearly was gaslighting at times, I feel like she was at least being honest about the witches and everything. I don't trust Kyubey at all. Not one bit. Anything that little cat thing says, it's going to be like, oh, no, it's fine. If you become a magical girl, everything's going to be great. And then you'll be able to get... Nope. I would have been like, this has been fun. I'm super cool about this, but peace out, Girl Scouts. I ain't becoming a magical girl. I'm going to take Homura's advice and get the hell out of Dodge, right? Because they get to die. And we find out this episode just how dangerous being a magical girl is, which Homura kind of has the attitude of like, I warned you, you didn't take me seriously, and now she's dead. So what now? But yeah, it's interesting that the familiars can become the type of witch they broke off from, kind of like a little osmosis thing where it's like a starfish, a piece of it breaks off and it grows into a new starfish. Interesting. So they're like, oh, did you figure out what you're going to wish for? And they're like, what about you, Madoka? And she's like, oh, well, it's hard to think of something when you're on the spot. So then they ask Mami, what'd you wish for? And when she stops, here's what I thought was going to happen. When she stops, I thought she wasn't going to remember. I thought it was going to be a plot device where once you make the wish, you can't remember what you wished for. And then you don't know what it was. And Kyubey's like, who knows? But you're conveniently a magical girl now that has to stop witches. So I thought maybe that she forgot the wish. Or that part of the deal, once you make the wish, you can't tell anybody about it. But that's not the case. Instead, and I love, again, shadows. She's in the center of darkness against all these like lamp lights here. They're like, oh, well, you don't have to tell us if you're uncomfortable. And she's like, in my case, And we see there was a car accident, like a semi hit her car, and she was like dying. Now, in this, if you look, there's literally somebody's head up against an airbag, like they're dead. So she ends up living, but everyone around her in the automobile probably dies. So she was all alone, right? And then we see the person next to her in the car is dead, but suddenly Cube shows up. If I saw that thing staring at me from a car window, I'd be like, let death come. Never mind. Nope, we're good. I don't think this is the place I wanted to go to. If I saw that thing staring at me with those unblinking, soulless, blood red eyes, no way, Jose. No. But in this moment of desperation, she doesn't want to die. And so she instantly agrees. She's like, her wish is to survive. And Cube grants it. It's like, you trade your soul. She's like, I didn't have time to think about it. Which sounds like Cube's a little bit of an opportunist. Cube's just walking around looking for girls hanging on the last limb of life. And they're like, hey, you want to become a magical girl or do you want to die? And then it's like, oh, well, what are you going to choose? So convenient for Cube to find her like this and convince her. And she's like, I don't really regret it. But then she comes back to that statement later on in this episode. She's like, I think my current way of life is better than having died back there. And it's like, she ends up dying anyway. So it all comes full circle in the end. But if you have the choice, think it through. I feel like, in this moment, I do appreciate that Mami is a little bit honest, where she's like, hey, I made a choice for me. # no regrets. But that was my decision. And I kind of didn't have a choice. You all have the opportunity. You're not facing a life or death situation right now. So you're not being pressured to choose whether to actually die or to live another day. So, you have the option to choose not to do this. And I do appreciate Mami for offering them. As much as I give her grief about gaslighting, I do appreciate that Mami at least tells them that they have the opportunity. They can turn back. And they're like, does your wish have to be for yourself? And then this whole thing, all these lights and shadows, they're like, does the wish have to be for yourself? It's like they're all on the same page. And then the moment Sayaka suggests about using the wish for somebody else, all the shadows start intersecting and the shadows are all going in different directions and making X's. Okay, here's the thing too. At one point, when we get to it, when Homura and Mami are talking to one another, their shadows make X's under them, which is weird, right? In this scene, where Sayaka brings up the idea of does the wish have to be for yourself? Under each of them is their bodies making X's with the shadows. What is the point of that? Why is that happening? What is this choice? I feel like there should be a reason, but then at the same time, I feel like the show doesn't necessarily have to have a reason. So it's like, what? What are we doing? So she says, does the wish have to be for yourself? And that's when Mami's like, well, hypothetically, say there was someone who was worse off than me. And then they're like, well, say there was someone worse off than me. And that's when Cube, like, could I use my wish for them? And they're like, oh, do you mean Kamijo-kun? Like, Cube just instantly knows what you're thinking. Not creepy at all. Like, do you mean Kamijo-kun? And she's like, oh, well, didn't I say hypothetically? Oh, gosh. Whoever makes the contract doesn't necessarily need to be the target for the wish. So Cube answers the question. They're like, oh, yeah, you can make a wish for someone else. You can do that. It doesn't have to be you that's affected by the wish at all. And they're like, it's not like it hasn't happened before either. But Mami says, I don't like that idea. And I like how Mami points this out. If you're going to grant a wish for someone else, it's vital you know what it is you're wishing for. And again, we talk about like coming of age and this being the weirdest coming of age story since Fooly Cooly. Mami, I appreciate that she says, what you wish for makes a difference. And she says, do you want his wish to come true? Or do you want to be the person who made his wish come true? That is, and she's like, it sounds the same, but there's a very big difference. And I'm like, yes, there is. And I'm so glad they point this out. Because, when you like someone, oftentimes you want to do things for them, But the reason you do those things for them is because you want them to like you back. And I can totally relate to this. There was a guy that I really liked in college, and I would do random things for them. I'd be like, oh, I can help pick you up after school, or I can help take you here or stuff. I went out of my way to do things for him, not necessarily because I wanted to, but because I wanted to do them to make him happy. And that's not the reason you should do things for others, because what ends up happening is that that does not make them like you anymore. At the end of the day, lesson learned, it didn't make him like me anymore. And it was just like, you did all those things, which was cool, but that doesn't make me like you. And if it's like, if they like you, they like you. If they don't, they don't. And so, and I had to learn that the hard way. And I feel like Mami's saying, like, are you wanting to grant this wish for him because it's what he wants? Or is it what you think he wants, and you think he's going to be like so happy because you granted this wish for him? Because yeah, what I thought was going to happen, and may still happen, we haven't, gotten to that point yet. What I thought was going to happen was, in this episode, Sayaka was going to make the wish to heal, Kamijo, to heal him. And then it was going to be one of those scenarios where she thinks she did something really good and he's going to be so happy. But in the end, it like causes all these problems and makes his life even worse. And then he doesn't even want to live anymore. That's what I thought was going to happen. She was going to like cure him. And then he'd already like come to terms or come to peace with the fact he wasn't going to play violin anymore. And now he has the chance to, but it was going to be like a monkey's paw thing where suddenly he was going to like lose an arm. Like she saves his life, but he loses an arm in the process. It's like the law of equivalent exchange. I kept thinking that was going to happen this episode. It may still happen, but I'm glad Mami brings up, like, you need to know why you're doing mic for them. Why are you doing this? What is the point? And is this what he wants or what you want for him? And they're like, that's a harsh way of putting it. She's like, but it has to be said now. Because she's like, these wishes, these miracles are permanent. And if you save him and that's not what he wants, then you're going to become a magical girl for no reason. You would have wasted your wish on somebody that didn't want it. And so I'm glad Mami says that. I'm glad she addresses that right now. And then Sayaka doesn't have an answer yet. And she's like, yeah, I was being a little naive. She's like, I'm going to have to talk to him about it. And she's like, well, this is difficult, isn't it? And Madoka is just kind of like, and then of course, Kyubey, like we're having this moment where Sayaka's like, oh, you're right. I probably shouldn't, make these wishes naively or, put my possible friends in danger just because I want to, help them, but I'm not thinking of them. And then Kyubey, this little white bitch, is just like, she's like, oh, the sooner the better for me though. And I'm like, bitch, what? No. This little mother trucking cat, I want to chuck it out a window. I'm like, get away from these girls. I don't trust you at all, Kyubey. No, you son of a bitch. And they're like, well, that won't do. Girls hate guys who pressure them. So here was another thing that I was wrong about. I thought that, I thought Mami and Kyubey had a really, really close relationship, but she almost seems to be like, in her own way, trying to protect the girls, kind of like Homura, but in her own way. So, because she's like, well, girls hate guys who pressure him, so don't do that. Like, she kind of holds him at arm's length and keeps him from like getting his way completely, which is interesting to me. And then we'll have that conversation with Homura and her here in a second. But I thought that was interesting. I thought they were on a different level, but and then Kyubey just doesn't say anything in response to that. He just creepily sits on Madoka's shoulders. Yep. And then she goes home. And she says, it really isn't that simple, is it? And then, of course, I like this bit of world building where Kyubey's like, I can't pressure you. Suggestions are against the rules. So there is a little bit of lore to this contract. Kyubey cannot suggest any wishes or miracles, which is good to know. I like that caveat that he can just say, have a contract with me, but he can't convince you what to do. That's good. And then girl, she's like, I guess just wishing to become a magical girl wouldn't work, would it? Like, I get in this point here where she wants to be like special. We're going to talk about it here in a second, but it's like, she doesn't have anything she's aspiring for. And this is where this conversation comes into play. When Kyubey says, Madoka, do you just thirst for power? I was like, the red flags were waving like as fast as they could be. I was like, oh no, abort mission. Nope. Because what I think it is that Kyubey recognizes that Madoka is a very average girl. There's nothing special about her that sets her apart from the other classmates. She's very average. She's mid, as the kids would say. But because she's so average and doesn't have any special qualities that she believes she possesses, that makes it to where she would very easily make a wish just for power. And I feel like Kyubey is like, oh, I can work with that. I can work. If you want power, I can give you power. And you'll be tied into this magical world and you'll do exactly what I want you to. I feel like for Kyubey, it's like, oh, you just want power? Easy. Brawn? Can do. You're not going to use brains in this situation? Even better. That'll make you an even better servant for my task of killing witches. That's what I think it is. And we get a lot about Madoka and her self-reflection of herself just from the opening page of her notebook. Like I'm open here to her notebook and there's pictures of her in her school uniform. There's a picture of Mami. There's a picture of Homura. There's a picture of like little angel wings flying away. I don't know if she's going to get angel wings when she becomes a magical girl. I think of Sailor Moon and one of her transformations, she gets angel wings. But in another drawing she looks kind of like she has like a little chubby belly in that drawing. And right after that, he says, he's like, that's not what I mean. She says, maybe I do. I mean, I'm slow and I'm not good at anything. This very much reminded me of Sailor Moon. Because in Sailor Moon, I watched the Deke dub, which was like the English dub from the 90s. So granted, they had to ad-lib some translations for the dub. But in that dub, there was a lot of times where Serena got body shamed all the time. And as a kid, when I was like 6 years old, I was like, she ain't fat. I was like, why y'all calling her fat? She's like 140 pounds and 5'8". Girl is skinny. What are you talking about? I was like so floored. I was like, is this the beauty standard in Japan? Is Serena fat? She seems super thin to me. And so as a kid, I was kind of like, why are they body shaming her? What is going on? But in the Deke dub, they would call her like chubby. They would call her like dumb. They like basically shamed Serena like all the time. Usagi all the time in the dub. And I was like, oh my God, like I felt bad for her. And Luna even shames her, a little bit at the beginning. But it kind of made sense where you kind of like rooted for her to get to be a magical girl because you're like, oh yeah, like Serena has all these things against her, but then she becomes Sailor Moon and she fights crime and she's super cool and it kind of makes up for that. And so it's very easy to see why Madoka would want to become a magical girl because she just doesn't believe that she's good at anything. She's like, I have nothing going on in my life. I have no reason for my existence. Being a powerful magical girl and being able to save people would be super cool. She's like, if I could be someone cool and wonderful like Mami-san, maybe Mami-san, then things would be great. And then I like Kyubey is like, becomes Darth Sidious, and he's like, that's the sort of wish you could make. It factors into it as well. But even I can't imagine how large a soul gem you might produce. As he's shrouded in the shadows. I was like, oh my God, Kyubey. So apparently the more powerful a wish, the bigger or the more ego is tied to your wish, the bigger a soul gem. That sounds creepy. I don't know how that's, I guess the more of your soul is connected to the wish. Homura, we haven't seen Homura's soul gem at all. So I'm curious about that. But yeah, I'm like, oh, a big giant soul gem. What? Kyubey, I don't trust you. But yeah, I feel for Madoka in this moment because she just doesn't believe she's special and feels like becoming a magical girl would give her the power to save people. And she kind of even says it here. She says, he's like, I've never met a girl with such potential before. Which we'll talk about with Homura in a minute. When they do the close-up of Kyubey's face, I'm like, nope, that thing is from hell. Get it away from me. And she's like, oh, well, come on, Kyubey. What are you talking about? You're joking, right? And he's like, no. And that's when the dad interrupts. And the dad's like, oh, your mom's drunk again. Let's help get her back to bed. So we're going to come back to that conversation about her becoming a magical girl here in a moment. But meanwhile, we have the mom shows up drunk. Again, One thing I really love about this show is subverting these stereotypical anime married couple gender roles, because in nearly every anime I've watched with a slice of life or modern family, the dad is the breadwinner with the suit and the corporate job, and the mom's at home taking care of the kids and cooking and the gardening. And here that's subverted, where it's the dad. And also even just the attitude, like how many anime have we seen where like the dad figure comes in after drinking with the boys out on the town late at night after work, getting drunk with the guys, and then comes back and is like, oh man, I had too much beer, gotta pass out. And the mom's like, there, I'll help you get you to bed. And I just love the way that they're like that. That's literally the subversion that happens here, is that the dad is like, oh, I love your mother for being like that. And I'm like, and it almost throws you off for a second, and it almost kind of like makes you go, wait a minute, what? Because you're so used to being it on the opposite shoe. And it's so fascinating to me how they subvert that. And it almost feels wrong, but it only feels that way because we're so used to seeing it switched, where it's the father that comes in like that and the mom being the caring one. Interesting. And so they give her water and take her to bed, and she's like, drink by your damn self. And they're like, you want to have some hot chocolate? So then they have the conversation. Why does mom love her job so much? Working at that company wasn't her dream, was it? And so Monica's like, why does she work there if it wasn't, why didn't she pursue her dream? Was it really the corporate life that she wanted? And so then the dad says, well, I'm sure there are times that are tough and painful for her, but he says the subsequent feeling of accomplishment is her greatest joy. So this mom is like, she like thrives on Shark Week, wants to like eat the competition, have this sense of accomplishment. So the job, even though it's not her dream job, still allows her to get the same end result and end feeling that she wants. She wants a sense of accomplishment. Even if this job isn't her dream job, it allows her to have that, so she settles for it, right? And the dad's like, okay, she might not have wished to work where she does now, but she's still living her ideal way of life. Like, which is going to tie back to Madoka being like, well, I want to help people and I want to be strong enough to help people. So being a magical girl isn't the ideal way of doing that, but it would give me that opportunity. I'm like, ah, damn it, the dad's not helping matters either, right? So, and again, tying to Jujutsu Kaisen, all I will say is that the main character of Jujutsu Kaisen has pink hair like Madoka and has a tendency to want to save people and be strong enough to help save people. So I'm like, was Akatami influenced by Madoka Magica? Because there's some other elements in Jujutsu Kaisen that are starting to show up in this series, and I'm like, oh, were we influenced? Maybe. I like that my voice gets like shrill because I'm about to lose it. So yeah, it's like, so dreams can come true like that. And the dad has no clue what he's suggesting to his daughter. And they're like, so someone's dream can be their way of life. It's like, yeah, if you want to save people, that can be your dream. And it can drive your dreams. Your dreams and passions can drive your life and how you live it. And like the dad's like, well, sure, our opinions differ, but I really like that about your mom. It's like, don't you think she's wonderful too? So then we go back to the lampposts, and we get this scene of you have the lamppost, and the lighting makes it look like a cross between Mami and Homura. But I love that when Homura stands on the stairs, her X is wavy. The shadows are wavy, and Mami's is like cut straight. And what's interesting is she has, her little soul gem, makes it a ring again. And then we see Homura, who shows up out of the lamplight. And Homura brings up a good point. She's like, you're putting civilians in danger. And Mami's like, well, they've been chosen by Kyubey. Like, oh, it's not our fault. They're no longer innocent civilians. So that line there, she's like, well, Kyubey's chosen them. So Kyubey has chosen them, and basically this demonic cat is going to pester them until they agree to be magical girls. So they're no longer just innocent. Kyubey, I feel like both Mami and Homura know once Kyubey seeks you out, he's going to stalk you until you agree to be a magical girl, because he's a creepy mofo like that. And she's like, well, what do I do, Homura? Do I just let them, be persuaded by Kyubey unknowingly, or do I actually like try to foster some sense of self-defense for them and letting them know what they're getting into and help to cultivate them before they take on this task? Like, she's like, aren't I doing a good thing? Aren't I doing a good thing by doing this? And Homura's like, well, you're leading them towards becoming magical girls. Like, I feel like Homura's like, look, we both know Kyubey's going to stalk them. I'm trying to actively convince them not to become magical girls and to get away from this cat. You are trying to encourage them to become magical girls. So there is a little bit of a difference. And that's when she's like, and you don't like it. And she's like, it's a nuisance. We don't need to deal with it. Especially in the case of Kaname Madoka. And she's like, oh, I see. You've noticed her potential as well. And she's like, I cannot under any circumstances allow her to make a contract. So I feel as if they've all sensed Madoka's potential, and Kyubey is no stranger to it. Kyubey is probably drawn to it like a moth to a flame, as we see the bugs being drawn to the lamps, right? Which is a nice little like subtle symbolism thing going on. I feel like if the theory that these magical girls have the potential to become witches is true, Homura's like, hey, we don't want Madoka to become a magical girl, because if she turns or if something bad happens, she'll become a horrifically powerful witch, and we can't deal with that. So yeah, let's just nip it in the bud now, have her not become a magical girl, and just avoid it altogether, right? Why are you trying to push her to become a magical girl when, if our theory is correct, things can go awry, right? I can't let her make a contract. And then that's when Mami says, is it because you're afraid anyone stronger will get in your way? I think that could be it too. If it's not Madoka becoming a witch herself, it could be that Mami's like, well, if Madoka becomes this super strong magical girl and sides with Kyubey, are you not going to be able to stop Kyubey? Is she going to stand between you and Kyubey and not let you destroy that cat? That could also be it, right? And then she says, that sounds like paranoia to me. I like the Homura's like, bitch, what? Now that we've seen the episode, the foreshadowing is there of Mami being in the darkness, of Mami dying. It's kind of there, which is crazy. And then the shadows get darker between the two of them. And then Homura's like, I don't have a reason to fight you. But what does she do there? She's like, well, tonight's the last time we'll resolve this peacefully. Again, the foreshadowing! I thought what it meant was that after this encounter, Homura and her were not going to be able to get along. And after this encounter, Mami was going to try everything in her power to keep Homura away from Madoka. That's what I thought was going to happen. No, it literally is just the last time they interact with one another. Insanity. She's like, we're not going to resolve this peacefully. And she walks away. And Homura, I love that. Again, we talk about Shaft with this. In the Shaft animation with March comes in like a lion. There are certain moments where characters do dramatic poses and dramatic swishings of the hair and face. This was one of them. It's portraying Homura's inner angst that she wants to save these girls and they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. And I'm kind of here for it. But yeah. Meanwhile, we go back to the hospital. And Sayaka was not able to see her friend, which is sad. They weren't feeling good today. Here's the thing. When she said she couldn't see the friend, and then they suddenly see the witch's egg that's suddenly there. Because let's look at this. Let's go back to this. They walk past. Okay. What's interesting here is that they're like, oh, well, we came all this way too. That's pretty rude. And okay, that's when Madoka looks over where the bicycles are. Again, the bicycles on the racks are so creepy. And that's when they see the egg. Okay. There's something there. And Kyubey, it just cuts to Kyubey, who looks so cute, like, oh, I don't know how that got there. Oh my God, what? But yeah, ridiculous. So yeah, Kyubey just happens to look at the witch's egg like, oh no, how did this end up here? What could possibly have happened? And it's like, son of a bitch. So no. So my thought at this point was that the witch's egg being planted in the wall, I thought Kyubey planted it there. And I thought that the moment that Kyubey is like, oh my gosh, how are we going to get a hold of Mami? Madoka, you'll have to go get Mami. I'll stay here with Sayaka. We'll be able to deal with it. I was like, one, you all established you guys have a telepathic link. Why couldn't you telepathically linked up with Mami? Why did Madoka have to go find her? That didn't make sense, but they were all in a panic, so they didn't question it. She just went off. Two, the moment that Kyubey stayed behind with Sayaka, I'm like, okay, they're going to get trapped in there. The boy is going to be put into danger, and Sayaka, in her moment of panic, is going to make a wish because she decides she has to become a magical girl and was going to use like her bat to like fight off the witches and save the boy. That's what I thought was going to go down. It doesn't exactly go down that way, but they do end up getting separated and then catching back up with the witch. But I thought it was going to really be Sayaka centered this episode, but that is not what happened. And so, yeah, we have this witch's egg looks exactly like the soul gem. It just has a needle puncturing into something and darkness. Otherwise, it literally looks like a soul gem. Nope. So they don't have Mami's cell phone number. Kyubey decides to be silent, and then Madoka goes to get Mami while Sayaka watches with Kyubey. Sure. And they're like, yeah, when she gets here, we'll use my telepathy. I'm like, well, why couldn't you use the telepathy to call for her now? What the fudge? And then it instantly zaps them into the hospital. Go figure. And Kyubey's like, are you scared? And she's like, well, yeah. And I like the idea of operating theater. Crazy. She's like, if things go bad, I might ask you for that. But for now, I'll wait. This is important to me. I don't want to decide until I'm ready. So yeah, I think Sayaka is going to decide. I think Madoka is going to decide. And it's going to be based because Mami died. And Homura was like, I tried to tell you guys not to do this, but I see that y'all don't listen. I think the fact that the witch was like a little mouse that was a nurse is such a creepy design, and then it becomes like a clown at the end. It was reminding me of the movie The Witches, also the book The Witches by Roald Dahl, which takes place in a hotel but still involves like mice in it and witches, so I thought that was interesting. Meanwhile, Mami gets, Mami and Madoka catch up and realize that they have to go in there. She uses a ring to open up the portal. Creepy as fudge, right? All of it's creepy. And so they end up going in. And okay, the witch's lair is literally the symbol is... But here's the thing that's crazy. So she uses her ring to open up the portal, right? Uses her ring that looks like the symbol on it. I don't know if the symbol on the ring is what the symbol on the portal is, or if the portal is the symbol of the witch, because we see the little ears like the mouse, like the nurse. But here's the thing. The portal thing shows the little like pigtails, like the mouse ears coming out of the body. But then there's these billowy sleeves and there's no nurse's hat. So I'm like, again, was the witch a magical girl that transformed into a witch? I don't know. Could it be that inside the witch's egg is all this negative energy made by familiars who become the witches? There's stuff that Kyubey's not telling them conveniently, and we're going to find it out later, and it's going to be ridiculous. So yeah, they end up going in. We don't get any creepy German this time, although we do see Belgian waffles and numbers somehow. And lots of needles and thread. There's a Madoka Magica pill bottle, and it says Cookie on it. What the fudge? So maybe the witch's name is Cookie? I don't know. The emblem of the witch is like on everything. It's creepy. And then, yeah, there's like candles and ice cubes and scissors, chocolate bars, sweets. This is so freaky. You guys, if you were too reckless, I would have been mad. And then she's like, now we don't have to worry about the witch getting, and that's when Homura shows up. Yeah, okay, so the one thing says delicious cookie. So maybe the witch is called Delicious Cookie. And she says, I said I didn't want to see you again. And Homura's like, look, I'm going to take care of this. Here's the thing that's crazy. Mami's pride and Mami's like ego essentially causes her death. And Madoka watched this go down. So Sayaka, I could see Sayaka getting mad at Homura and being like, well, why didn't she save us? And why didn't she do this? But Madoka saw where Homura warned them and said, I'm going to do this. You can't do it by yourself. This witch is too strong. And Mami held her back. So by all accounts, Madoka should not be mad at Homura because Homura tried to help them and Mami shut them down. So unless Madoka just completely forgets about that and doesn't remember it, I'm like, girl, she tried. She said, I will take down, you two should leave. And she's like, no, we need to get Miki-san and Kyubey. And she's like, well, I'll help you. And she's like, oh, do you think I would trust you? Because she says that she'll help them. I can guarantee their safety. And then that's when she like flips her hair and ties her up. I like that the ribbons with the chains that come out form like a heart. And then they tie her up and use like the lock with the key. And Homura's like, hey, we don't have time for this. Now's not the time. And she's like, I don't want to hurt you, but I can't guarantee your safety if you struggle too much. And I'm like, girl, she's like, the witch is nothing like the ones you've encountered so far. Be a good girl and I'll get you out on the way back. My thing is, how did Homura know that the witch wasn't like what they were used to unless she'd seen the witch before? So that's interesting to me. I don't know. And then she gets Madoka to come with her and they leave her behind. And Homura tries to like tell them to wait, but it doesn't work. Crazy. The thing about it is, whenever originally the ribbon like cut and let Homura go, and Homura was like, oh, and she looks down, it dissolves. What I thought it was that the witch was about to attack Mami, and Mami was like, oh shit, I need backup. And she was going to just let Homura go, and Homura could go in and help her. And I thought the two of them were going to work together, stop the witch, and save the other two girls. At that point, I thought that was what was going to happen. But no, the magic dissolved because she died. So yeah, then we have these creepy like mice that look like eyes and also mushrooms at the same time. I don't understand. And there's, yeah, you see the witch with the sleeves and everything. Interesting. Delicious cookie. Yep. But it's interesting that we have all of these like themes of sweets, but then also all of these pill bottles, which is interesting to me. And then, oh, some of them say strawberry. Some of them say cookie on them. She says, Mami-san, what is it? She says, I thought about my wish a lot. And you're going to get mad at me for being too naive. And she says, well, what is your wish? And at that point, she says, I've never had a subject I was good at or any skill I could be proud of. And she says, and then, of course, and again, like Shaft Studios, she smiles, looks into the sunlight, and I'm like, oh my God, it's kind of creepy. She says, I thought I'd spend the rest of my life without being able to help anyone. But now I realize that I have the chance to do that. So I won't be a burden anymore. Again, all these pill bottles. What the fudge? And there's like angels and bits of stuff inside of them. She's like, I couldn't stand it. And then they go through the door. This is like chocolate flavor on it. But then I meet you and you show me what it's like to fight to save people. Yeah, there's like cheese, like cake, all these weird lights, crosses everywhere. Says cookie and strawberry and fresh. What the fudge? And then, yeah, and I thought you told me I might be capable of doing the same. So, yeah, also it says candy, ice, candy, and there's the witch. Yeah. Oh, my God. And so when they're on this bridge, she's like, it made me happier than anything. So at this point, I feel like Mami is kind of at a crossroads. When she's talking to her about this, she's like, oh, this made you happy. Because she's like, my wish will be granted if I can become a magical girl. And her wish is to help people. Again, she's literally like Yuji Itadori. She's like, if I can become a magical girl, my wish will be granted. And there's nothing more I wish than to have the power to help people. Because then Mami's like, well, you might as well get something out of this wish. You might as well get wings or something. Maybe like that drawing. If you're going to, let me be a magical girl with wings so I can fly, and get away from all these monsters. Might as well get something out of it. And at that point, she's like, it's hard, You'll get hurt. And you won't have time to fall in love or hang out with friends. She contradicts herself here. Right? Because Mami at first, Mami's been all about like, oh, you get to be a magical girl. It's not that bad. I don't have any regrets in life. I was saved from death. But then here she goes, oh, well, you could get hurt. You won't have time to fall in love or hang out with friends. You're going to be alone the rest of your life. She's like, but I still want to become someone like you who never gives up, just like you. And I feel like Mami at that point's like, girl, no, I gave up. I could have died, but I gave up and accepted this contract. Like, it's not what you think. She's like, no one should become someone like me. And Madoka, she's like, I'm just acting cool, but I have no one to talk to when I'm scared or sad, and I'm forced to cry all alone. Which I'm so curious why Homura, I'm like, then why does she shove Homura away? Because I feel like, could she not have camaraderie with Homura? Why does she shove her away? Maybe it's because Homura just hates the idea of being a magical girl so much. Did she try to make Homura a magical girl to be her friend and it backfired and Homura was like, bitch, no, why'd you make me go through with this? And now the same thing's happening with Madoka. Being a magical girl isn't that great. And, under normal circumstances, most people would look at that monologue and go, yeah, you're right. This isn't a great idea. I mean, I'm here if you need somebody and you're not fighting witches, but you're right. I don't need to become a magical girl. But instead, Madoka's like, oh, well, but you're not alone anymore. You've got me, Mami-san, and Sayaka. You're not alone. We're here for you. And that's, I think, when the switch flips. Because she's like, well, you're right. You really are like a friend I could have. And then we see like the pills falling like rain. She's like, will you fight with me from now on? I feel like the pills falling like rain are like the medicine, the cure for Mami's loneliness, like falls from the sky, literally, which I don't know if like it's tied to the witch or tied to emotions or if the magical girls are all connected and that's how it's connected because the witch used to be a magical girl. But she's just like, I feel like this moment, Mami, like she had in her mind the idea of like convincing Madoka like Homura to just not go through with it. But the moment that Madoka was like, well, we'll be your friends and we'll be together forever. She was like, oh my God, I'm so lonely. That's exactly what I want. Yes, please. And it's like, no, it's like, girl, you said the wrong thing to a girl that could become yandere. And she's like, if you're really okay with someone like me. And that in itself shows a lot of like Mami's insecurity with herself. We don't know what her life was like before the crash. And even after the crash, she seems like a popular girl, but we don't ever see her with anybody. She's all alone. And then the lights go out in that moment as if it's reflecting the darkness in her soul. She's like, oh gosh, some role model I turned out to be. And it's like, and she's like, I'm not that great after all. And it's like, she realizes how horrible she is in this moment because she's going to convince this girl to go through with this decision that's not right. But she's doing it because she's selfish and wants a friend. And it's like, holy shit. And she's like, oh, Mami-san. And then she's like, oh, well, you need to come up with something for your wish. And then she's like, it's a contract. You might as well get something out of it. And then here she says, what does she say there? She's like, Madoka's like, oh, well, I'm pretty modest. And she's like, well, how about this? She's like, if we haven't thought of a wish by the time that we've taken out this witch, then you could wish for a grand feast or a cake. At first she says, oh, just wish for a boyfriend. And I'm like, but you just told her she was going to end up alone. So that's bullshit. But then when she's like, oh, wish for a grand cake and a feast by Cube, I'm like, bitch, that sounds like a pretty big cop-out for a wish. I'm like, an episode ago, you were saying that we really need to think hard about this wish, and it's very, very important. But now that you found out that Madoka's going to be your friend by becoming a magical girl, she's like, oh, just ask for a cake. You don't need anything special. Just ask for a cake. You're fine. And it's like, oh, wait, what? No, we're not fine. But that's what she's like, oh, the most extravagant party cake. As there's like pretzels hanging that look like heads on hooks behind them. What the fudge show? She's like, we'll become a team together. And then Madoka has the right question. Am I becoming a magical girl for cake? And then they go to the operating theater. The grief seed has begun to move. I like that, again, it's shadows jutting out like the shadows that were under them when they were talking throughout this episode under the street lamps. And they're like, okay, got it. And they start to move. But then as she transforms into the magical girl, she's like, oh yeah, we're going to celebrate together. It'll be fine. Then all of like the little mice look up and we see them all walking towards the witch. And she starts shooting all the mice, of course. Guns after guns ablazing. She says, I've never fought with such a happy feeling before. Should have been a sign of foreshadowing she was going to die, but I did not think that was even a remote possibility, right? And there's like beds falling next to these donuts. I think of the mom sleeping in the bed. What? And it's a hospital too, so okay. And then she's on the syringes. I'm not scared of anything anymore. She's like, now that I have friendship, I don't have to fear death. And it's like, shit. And then she like just frolics through the rainbow icing with Madoka as they get to the center of the witch's lair. And behind the donut, you're just in time as this witch is born from all the sparkles around the egg. Okay, what does it say? There's like, it says Montpellier. Montpellier. There's all these words that are like, it looks like Alice in Wonderland, right? It's like Alice in Wonderland where there's the egg on top of the table and she looks like Alice, like the drink me thing or the eat me. And there's like a bowl of cereal and it says 120%. It looks like cereal and magic stuff. I wish I could understand what this said, but it's in another language. But yeah, it looks like a cereal box. Nope. I think that these were humans, but I don't know. Nope. And then it just floats down. And it's like the cutest little Sanrio Hello Kitty thing you've ever seen. And it says, a witch. Okay. It looks super cute. And then, of course, it sits on the table. And Mami, like, knocks it down. And decides to, like, take the gun and kill it. Like, just straight up blows its head off. Insane. But then, it, like, shoots up in the air. And we see like it start to transform into the clown, right? And the little mouse thing is a decoy. The headpiece, we see the actual face of the clown inside the body part. The head part was just a decoy. Oh my God. And I can't believe she like does the finale and she goes through its body and like wraps it up. But then from the body comes the witch and it comes down and eats her head. And that's when Homura realizes that she's dead. Insane. And then she becomes a regular girl again, and then good time over. Like, good time over. And they're both like, and I love that it's suddenly like the happy magic colors fade away and it becomes mute. And like her body, like everything, like her like headless body falls to the ground and then it just starts eating at her. And Madoka, like, is mute tone, freaking the fuck out. And it's like, oh, hurry, you two. Hurry up and make a contract with me. And I'm like, no, that Kyubey. The fact that Kyubey, which I get Kyubey can't help them because that's why they create magical girls to begin with. I understand that. But the fact that it's like, no time to mourn, hurry up and make a contract. It felt like, you know, you've seen anime where that's the opening of, oh, something bad's happened. Hurry up and make a contract so you can gain these special powers. But the thing of it is, usually in those series like Bleach, for example, people don't die. They get hurt, but they don't die. Here, nope, they die. And that's when Homura shows up and is like, bitch, no. And like, decide on your wishes and hurry. And then Homura's like, yeah, no need for that, you bitch-ass cat. I'm going to save him. I'll take care of it. I like that her witch's outfit is like the muted purple tones. It's very Sailor Saturn. And then like it tries to eat her and she keeps like getting away from it and taunting it. Like Homura's a lot stronger than she looks. And she keeps luring the witch further and further as it tries to eat her. And then it literally like just blows it from the inside out. Okay. And then she manages to kill it. She's like, a moment later and you would have been dead. And we see the like witch fall. Now here's the thing. The witch falls and then we have the table. And it's the seed. But like the cup has blood coming from it. So was it a witch? Was it human? We still don't know. She's like, burn this moment into your eyes. This is what it's like to become a magical girl. She's like, bitches, you just saw your friend die. You still want to go through with this? Meanwhile, she takes the witch's egg. And of course, Sayaka is like, oh, give that back. That's Mami's. And she's like, yeah, you're right. This belongs to a magical girl, not to you. Yeah. Give it back to Mami. And yeah, she's like, yeah, you're not a magical girl. You don't need this. That was so cold. She's like, you two have no right to touch one. Which in that moment, you could take that as, was Homura challenging them to become magical girls? Maybe, maybe not. Or was she like, yeah, this is what's going to happen if you become one. You sure you still want to go through with it? Oh my God. And then Kyubei's just blinks. Like, well, what a fun adventure, girls. You want to become magical girls for me? Like, I don't blame them for crying in this moment. Now, Sayaka, do I think she's going to become a magical girl because of Mami's death? I don't know. I think Sayaka might become one to save her. She lost one of her friends, so if she's faced with maybe losing the one boy, she might become a magical girl for that. But I think Madoka is definitely going to become a magical girl because she couldn't save her friend, and now she's like, I want to become powerful enough that I can save all the other magical girls from the witches, which is exactly what Kyubei wants. I don't know. I don't get good vibes, y'all. I don't get good vibes at all. Not one bit. And we have this creepy ED now that has her literally like walking past people in the shadows, talking about greedy admiration and being armed with power. Yeah, no big deal. Everything's fine. And then she's like, there's an image of her in the eye of this creepy thing at the end. Then I'm like, well, what is this thing? It's like a face, but it's also a door. What the fudge? Nope. Nope. Not having it. Not having it one bit. I've talked for an hour about this episode, but I am just so floored. I am so insanely floored with what I just saw. So I'm not saying every episode is going to have a discussion this long, but I keep getting more and more intrigued by this show and more terrified. So there's that. In any case, I'm excited to hear your comments down below. I'm sure you all were black boxing in the Discord being like, Romania has no clue what's going to happen in episode 3. And now I'm like, well, all bets are off. I'm now thoroughly terrified. So yeah. So we'll see how that turns out. But I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe. Take care. And I'll be back next week with more Puella Magi Madoka Magica. Bye.